Hey guys, welcome back to Budget with the July Dreamer. My name is Miranda, and on this channel I share everything personal finance. I cover budgeting, saving and investing. If these topics of interest to you, then please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into today's video. So today's video was meant to be something completely different, which I think I wanted to do a monthly reset, but we still have one more week and a half in May, so I figured let me just talk about what is on my heart, and that is, should you be investing in the stock market if you have debt, non-mortgage debt, that is? And if you watched my Transfer Tuesday video earlier in the week, then you know where this stems from. But if you didn't, essentially somebody commented on some of my videos. I deleted the comments. I don't like that kind of negativity in my life, but they started berating me for living my life and investing in the stock market when I have debt, and I literally did not understand why they felt the need to be also righteous on my channel. Everybody has their own opinion on things, but it's no excuse to be telling what somebody should be doing with their money. I share what I'm doing with my money. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's okay too, because we have different lives, we have different life priorities, we earn different amounts and all of that good jazz. So I'm just sharing what I'm doing. If you think it's great, awesome. If you don't think it's great, awesome too, because again, personal finance is personal. But I thought we dive deep into this topic because I have seen it a lot online, and I don't understand why a lot of people feel the need to tell other people that you should not be living your life, essentially. And if you yourself make that decision that, you know what, I'm gonna put a lot of things on hold whereas I take care of debt, that is good, because I've done it before as well. But this is not because somebody made me feel bad about living my life the way I was living. More because I just wanted a peace of mind, which I got when I paid off 12,000 of debt that I had. And now that I have debt that is non-mortgage debt as well, I know what I need to do, the steps that I need to take, but I also know that I'm not going to put my life on hold. I'm in a position where I can enjoy both, and this is why I think it's important that we evaluate our own life circumstances and determine what makes sense for us. For sure, if you want to pay off debt, you definitely want to have that as your main focus, but not at the expense of living life. One of the worst feelings that I used to have when I was in debt was I would go to work 9 to 5 every single day, sometimes even more than that. I work in the corporate world, in the pharma industry. Sometimes I'll be working until 10-11 p.m. at night, only to wake up 5 hours later to do the same thing all over again. And then at the end of the month, when I would get paid, all of my essentials will be taken care of. Then I'll pay all of my bills and I'll be left with £50 or less. And that really used to frustrate me. That used to put me in the dumps because I was living paycheck to paycheck, and every single time it was the same dread. Yes, I'm glad that my bills are paid and I can send extra towards debt, but I had nothing to show for all of the hard work that I had done at work. And yes, this position of being in debt is one that circumstances brought me into, some my own choices, some life lived, and yeah. But that feeling, I never wanted to feel it again. So I say to myself, I am going to pay off my debt. And I started following the snowball method. So I started with the smallest debt, paid that off, and then moved on to the next. And the money that I was using on the small debt, I moved that minimum payment towards the next debt. And you know, that's the snowball method. There is another method called the avalanche method, which makes sense on paper in that you pay the interest, you pay the debt with the highest interest first. But psychologically, personally, for me, I think snowball is better, because once you tick off that one debt that this is paid, it feels really good. But in terms of long-term savings from what you're paying, avalanche makes much more sense. But again, for me personally, I almost always go with my psychological wins than anything else, especially when it comes to debt, because it just feels great. It feels like I'm doing something. When you are focusing with the avalanche, you don't feel like you're making any changes because you're focusing on the one with a high interest, and it just doesn't feel like it is moving. I'll give you an example. When I took out my advance mortgage on my home to buy my third rental property, I took out 60k last year I want to say last year August. Yes, last year August. We are now in May into June, and that loan is still at about 59k. Almost a year in, and it's still about 59k. It does have a high interest, and even though I make more than the minimum repayment, it just does not feel like it's moving. Hell, it is not moving because all of the money, extra monies I'm paying, the majority of it is going to the interest and not the principal, and that psychologically, honestly, does not feel great. I think, and I've touched on this in some of my debt-free Friday videos, because you start looking at it and you're just like, child, I made payments to this. What is going on? Like, excuse me. It doesn't feel like anything is happening with the avalanche method, even though in the long run it is. It's just in that moment, psychologically, it doesn't feel like a win. Hence why for me, I'll always go with snowball first, focus on my attention on getting rid of all of the small amounts, and then go to the big one. And psychological wins for me are always great because it motivates me to move on to the next and see what else I can do. And I'll also give you another example of the psychological wins. So my iPad, my Apple Watch, and my iPhone, all of these were on credit. The one with the lowest amount was the iPad, then it was the iPhone, then the Apple Watch. I went in that order in paying it off. When I paid off my iPad, I was so happy. I was I was so elated that I felt invigorated to continue. And then before you know it, so March I took care of the iPad. April came, I worked extremely hard, moved money around, and I paid off my iPhone. And then as of last week, I paid off my Apple Watch as well. And I kid you not, the psychological wins left me on such a high that I started looking at other things. Yes, I've got some credit cards that I need to take care of, so now I'm looking at them as well. And it's just such a win, you know, once you get rid of one, even if it was the smallest one of all. You get rid of that one, great, you start moving on to the next one, building up on the snowball effect, building up on using what you were sending to the other one to send to what you're working on is absolutely incredible. So if we come back to the topic at hand, should you be investing in the stock market if you have debt, non-mortgage debt? Personally, I think it's your decision. Now, I'll tell you what I am doing, or let me first tell you what I did when I was in debt. I'm in debt now, but before I became financially savvy. So let's take a sip of my coffee first. So back in between 2013 and 2017. 2013 is when I finished my university, and then I started looking at all of the debts that I had accumulated. I had no student finance, so there was no student finance to think about, but I had other debts because I didn't have student finance. So during that time, I accumulated a lot of payday loans, a lot of credit card debt, and yeah, I think that was it. Payday loans and credit card debt. That was what I was trying to take care of. All of it that added up to almost £12,000. And during that time, I remember this specifically. During that time, I was offered at work an opportunity to invest in the company that I worked for. So I could sacrifice a percentage of my salary to invest in the company I worked for. My first thought was, heck no. I have so much debt that I need to take care of. I don't think I have any extra money that I want to be investing. For sure, that's how I felt. But as I was talking to others, and I was peer pressured, not by people telling me that you should do it, but more by people saying, do you know what could happen if this all worked out, oh blah blah blah. And I was like, do you know what, let me do 1%, okay? Let me just do 1% and see how that goes for me. So I was doing 1%, and this was pre-tax, so I didn't honestly feel it. Another thing that I was doing was investing in my pension at work. Pre-2013, a lot of companies that I worked for, we had to actually opt into our pensions. I always never opted in. I was like, I want all my money now. So outside of national insurance, which I thought was going to be around by the time I retire and would be enough for me to retire on, what a joke. right? I always thought I didn't need to invest in a pension, and I always assumed pension was for old people, okay, not for a young person like me, not a 23-year-old 24-year-old person like me. No, I never thought that. So any companies that I worked for between the ages of I started working at 18, so between the ages of 18 and 20, I want to say 25, 26, I didn't invest in my pension per se. Actually, not at all. I never invested in my pension. I always opted out. And then when the rule changed in the UK that you had to actively opt out, otherwise you were auto enrolled, I just never bothered to touch it. It was just that. So during that period, I was investing in the company that I worked for, and then the pension as well. So those were the only investing I was doing. Outside of that, I wasn't doing any active investing, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know of it. Outside of my pension that I never considered investing anyway, I thought investing was just for the rich people, so I never bothered to. And I focused on paying off my debt. With the knowledge that I have now, I think I would still being focused on my debt, but I probably would have set aside at least between 10 to 50 pounds a month of my budget towards investing, because I know with investing it's about how long your money has to work for you in the market as opposed to how much you're putting in the market, and you know, time in the market and all that good jazz. So I literally think, personally, I think that you can do both. I think it does make sense to focus on one thing at a time, but when it comes to investing, we shouldn't limit ourselves to just, like in the UK, just things like your ISA, which is your after-tax money that you invest. We should also be thinking about your pensions, investing in that if you cannot yet invest actively, because the money that you get, the net income that you get is only enough to focus on your bills and paying off your debt. So I get that principle, but we should still be looking at, can I still invest in my pension, especially if I can't actively invest in after taxes. So personally, I think it makes much more sense, in my opinion, to do both, even if investing will only get like 0.01% of the income that you're bringing in when you're trying to actively pay down debt, especially when you've got high interest debt. I am not against focusing on paying off your debt, but I also feel like we shouldn't neglect investing. There are so many platforms, at least in the UK, where you can invest £1. At least like the minimum is £1 you can invest, and I am sure if there is a pound available and you have to choose between sweets and investing, I hope you would choose investing. Obviously we all have different life circumstances, so I can tell you what to do or how to prioritize your money, but personally that is what I am doing. So yes, I do have debt in terms of loan and credit cards, but none of them are too high in terms of interest. Like my personal loan that I took out, the 25k personal loan that I took out, my interest was pre-charged, so I know exactly how much it is and how much I'm paying, so the interest there is not affected. My advanced mortgage, that one is a little bit of a pain because interest flows with what the Bank of England says the interest will be. That's what it flows, plus what the bank adds on top. So that one is a bit of a pain, but otherwise the rest of my debts, no. This is why I am happy to invest and also pay off debt at the same time while still living my life, because like I said, the worst thing is going to work and then getting paid and all of your money disappears the same day. You don't have enough to actually enjoy your life. You don't have enough to send to your savings. That one is psychologically, it doesn't make you feel good. Obviously there are ways that we can start looking at increasing our income and all of that good jazz, but to be honest, if that's your only job that you have and all of that is just going towards debt, yes, there's a feeling that you'll get out of debt soon, but in that moment it doesn't feel that great At least for me, it never did. So this is why now that I'm in the current position that I'm in, I am sending every extra bit that I have towards my debt, but my budget always accounts for me living my life today as well. So that is my rant, you guys. That is my rant. Whether you're following Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps or not, I still feel like you should enjoy your money. Don't be messy with it or careless with it, but just prioritize what makes sense in your life without going into further debt. So I'm gonna end it here. I've got a lot of work to do and I need to go do my food shop. So I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.